What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to smash the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. And I just want to first let you guys know that I was contacted by the Twisted Pulp Radio Hour, which airs on KKRN 88.5 in California, and they're going to be playing the audio version of some of my stories on the radio. If you guys want to go check out the website, go click the link in the description box below, and let's get started with today's story. Now, I had previously talked about Johnny Cash covering Nine Inch Nails' song Hurt in a separate video, and you can click the link below to check it out. But today we're going to talk about how Johnny Cash covered the Soundgarden song Rusty Cage from their 1991 record Badmotorfinger. Stay tuned to find out the full story. Johnny Cash would be born in Kingsland, Arkansas in 1932, and by the mid-50s, he would soon sign a record deal with Sun Records, and would go on to have a very successful career as a country artist with hits like I Walked the Line, and even had crossover songs like Ring of Fire. Nicknamed the Man in Black, Cash was named that not just because of his fashion style, but because he was portrayed and truly was a rebel. And 20 years after beginning his career, Cash soon started to show up in films as well as TV shows. The 80s were a tough period for Cash, as none of his albums released during the decade made much of an impact, despite the fact that he was still a successful touring act. And Cash would also relapse during this time, going back on painkillers, and he felt that his label, Columbia Records, wasn't giving him the attention he deserved. He would soon sign with Mercury Records in 1987, and even then that wouldn't turn his fortunes around. It wouldn't be until he was dropped by Mercury Records in 1991 that things finally took a turn for the better. It was around this time that famed producer Rick Rubin would enter Cash's life. Cash appeared on the U2 track The Wanderer, providing backing vocals on their 1993 album Zooropa, and it was that appearance, as well as his appearance at a Bob Dylan tribute show, that got him the attention of Rick Rubin. Rubin at the time had his own recording label named American Recordings, and was looking for talent to fill his roster. It may have seemed like a strange choice for Rubin, but he's worked with an eclectic group of musicians up until that point in his career, including Public Enemy, Slayer, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Run DMC, and the Beastie Boys. And Rubin would offer Cash something that a lot of other labels couldn't: creative freedom. And here's Cash discussing how he first met Rick Rubin and how he wasn't originally interested in working with a producer.
How did he approach you to be on his label?
I was doing a show in California, and when I came off stage, my manager, Lou Robin, came to me and said, "There's a man here named Rick Rubin that said he would like to meet you, that has a record company, and he would like to record you." And I said, "I don't want to meet him." And he said, "Yeah, I think you might like him." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, he's different. He's not like the rest of them."
So true.
And so I told him, bring him back. And so I went back, and there's Rick, and immediately I liked him. Mm-hmm. And I said, "So if you had me on your record label, what would you do that nobody else has done?" And he said, "What I would do is let you sit down before a microphone with your guitar and sing every song you want to record." Right. Just you and your guitar. And I said, "You're talking about a dream I had a long time ago to do an album called Late and Alone." And he said, "That's it." He said, "That's the kind of record that we want to make." Well, that was my first American record.
Cash would eventually sign with Rubin's record label. One of my favorite quotes that Cash ever had about his collaboration with Rick Rubin was when he told an interviewer, "I dealt with the long hair element before, and it didn't bother me at all," adding that he found great beauty in men with perfectly trained beards. Rubin would go on to produce both of Cash's first two records on his American Recordings label. The first album Cash would release on Rubin's label would be 1994's American Recordings. The album would feature songs written by Cash himself, as well as covers of songs originally written by Leonard Cohen and Tom Waits. The album was well received by critics, and it would earn Cash praise that he hadn't seen in years. He would follow that up with 1996's Unchained, which saw some pretty interesting musical choices, including covers of Nine Inch Nails, Beck, Tom Petty, and today's topic, Soundgarden. Helping Cash on the album was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers backing band, as well as guest appearances from Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Fleetwood Mac's Mick Fleetwood, as well as Lindsey Buckingham. And written by Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell, Rusty Cage was released as the third single in 1992 from the band's album Badmotorfinger. But you're probably asking, why did Cash cover the song? Well, at first glance, there's really nothing in the song that would make one think it's perfect fit for Johnny Cash. Producer Rick Rubin, though, didn't see it that way, recalling, "When I played Johnny the Soundgarden version, he was horrified. He thought I was insane. He just looked at me and said, 'What are you thinking? Have you really gone off the deep end? I don't think I can sing that.'" Now, Rubin knew Cash could do the song, and the producer originally approached Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell to work up an arrangement for the song. And according to Cornell, who talked to Spin Magazine, he would reveal, "When Rick asked me to work up an arrangement of Rusty Cage for Johnny Cash, I thought it was a stupid idea. That shows how short-sighted I was. I just didn't hear it. It didn't make any sense to me. Lyrically, it did, but I was hung up on it sonically. I didn't know how to turn it into a Johnny Cash song. I spent a couple hours trying it and thought it was a waste of time, so I declined to do an arrangement. But later, when I heard the arrangement that Rick had somebody work up on the radio, I felt so stupid," he'd say. Following Cornell turning down the offer, Rubin would record a demo version of what he heard in his head, with him singing and guitarist Dave Navarro contributing to the song. Cash liked what he heard and recorded it. The impact was felt almost immediately for Cornell, who would reveal to a town hall on SiriusXM radio the following.
Your thoughts on his version of
He was
Rusty
alive
Cage?
when he did the
Yeah,
cover.
thank God. Oh my God.
No, I know.
It was an honor. Definite honor. Yeah, it was an amazing thing. Actually, saw some Bob Dylan documentary. I don't remember which one because there's a lot of them, where he talks about that, and he's still young, I think, when he's talking about it, saying how great it was that Johnny Cash did one of his songs, and we felt the same way. That's the one thing we have in common with Bob Dylan, that we appreciated that.
I remember he was interviewed by Larry King, and he was talking about the lyrics of Rusty Cage reminding him of like beat poetry, and how and his version of the song really brought out the lyric of that song in a way that only he can.
Yeah, I got messages on my answering machine after that. That was back when you had answering machines, and remember that?
Kim still has one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I got about 10 of them saying that they heard Johnny Cash's version of Rusty Cage and how great the lyrics were. And I thought, well, when our version came out, I didn't get
Yeah, I
one
know, exactly.
message.
Cornell, for his part, would end up meeting Johnny Cash in person in Seattle at the Paramount Theater after the singer recorded Rusty Cage. Cornell would reveal him and Cash spoke about the song and the lyrics and how he was intimidated at the meeting. And as Cash hit the road to support his album Unchained, he saw a change in his audience. He would write in his autobiography, "I began playing young people places like the Fillmore and discovered all over again how it felt to play for a crowd of people with no chairs or tables, standing on their feet, jammed together, energizing each other," he'd say. The album received a Grammy for Best Country Album, and Cash would be nominated for Best Male Country Vocal Performance for his version of Rusty Cage. In that same year, Cash would team up with guitarist Kim Thayil of Soundgarden, bassist Chris Novoselic of Nirvana, and drummer Sean Kinney of Alice in Chains for a cover of the Willie Nelson song Time with a Preacher. Fast forward now 22 years later, and it would be revealed in the press that Chris Cornell had contributed vocals to Johnny Cash Forever Words, which was a collection of songs created from Johnny Cash's unused poetry lyrics as well as letters. And Cornell's posthumous collaboration was known as You Never Knew My Mind, would be officially released. It would mark one of Cornell's final known recordings prior to his death in May of 2017. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Johnny Cash's cover of Rusty Cage in the comment section below. If you guys want to support my channel, simply watch another video or go check us out on Patreon. Take care.